Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to ENL 51, Rap as Poetry. We're in the final week already. It's kind of a bummer. I've enjoyed talking about this material with you all, reading your weekly forum posts. We've got a post coming up this week. We've got the final exam. There's plenty more work for you all to do and then for me to get to enjoy digging into. But nevertheless, we're in our final week of material this week. Our topic is Ars Poetica and rapping about rapping, which I find a fitting conclusion to the work we've done this summer. So as with all of the topics we've studied this summer, this quarter, whatever you want to call it, the topic kind of interconnects with the other topics. We've encountered songs throughout the summer that could fit under this rubric, this idea or framework. And they all kind of link together, and the themes that we've explored previously make their way into some of these songs as well. But Ars Poetica, as usual, I'll give an introduction and some brief remarks about the concepts here, give some definitions and stuff, and then I'll dig into the required songs and the optional songs and stuff like that. So Ars Poetica, I think is Latin, should have looked that up. And it means something like the art of poetry. So in page poetry, in what we usually call poetry, in English, and probably some other languages as well, there's a long-standing tradition of Ars Poeticas, which is poems that comment on the art of poetry itself. So they're kind of like meta poetry commentaries. Some of them do this work really explicitly and obviously, and like make a direct argument about what a poem is, or what a poem can be or should do, or what makes for a good poem or whatever. Some of them are explicit about all that stuff, almost like a manifesto. So this dude, Amiri Baraka, rest in peace, pretty sure. I got to see him speak once. He's a really cool poet and kind of troubling and problematic figure and thinker for a variety of reasons, but he was one of the leading poets of the Black arts movement in the, I think, 60s and 70s, the late 20th century, kind of coming after the civil rights movement, coming after a little bit earlier the Harlem Renaissance in literature, trying to find a space for radical Black art and Black poetry, and finding ways that Black people making art can contribute to the political goals of liberation, abolition, and stuff like that. So it's part of the Black Power movement, focused specifically on community art making, literature, and stuff like that, the Black arts movement. Amiri Baraka wrote a poem called, I think it's called Black Arts, which is the most often taught and anthologized poem from the Black arts movement. It has a lot of really violent stuff in it, some kind of messed up, problematic, anti-Semitic, possibly misogynistic stuff in it. So I'm not like, I'm not saying go out and read this. It's a wonderful, totally unproblematic piece of art, but like much of the stuff we're studying this quarter, it has some important values and virtues, as well as some significant problematic material. So that's like one idea of an Ars Poetica, is a thing that comes out and says what a poem is or can be. Amiri Baraka starts that poem saying, "Poems are bullshit unless they are teeth or trees or lemons piled on a step. Fuck poems, and they are beautiful." So he's saying like poems should do something concretely in our lives. They should mean something in our everyday material lives, like teeth and trees and lemons piled on a step. So that's his theory of poetry, and specifically Black art and Black poetry, right? Other Ars Poeticas approach the question of what a poem is or can be or should do more metaphorically, more figuratively, by way of analogy, something like that. where they don't explicitly say anything about poetry, but somehow they clue you in to the fact that they are indeed talking about poetry. Sometimes it's putting Ars Poetica in the title, Ars Poetica as riding your bicycle down the street. And then it just gives you a description of riding your bicycle down the street, and the reader is meant to somehow conclude that this is telling us something about the art of poetry. Some Ars Poeticas are sincere, some are satirical, humorous. They achieve all kinds of different tones. Some of them are talking specifically about the act of creating poetry. Some of them are a little bit more broad about the act of art and creativity in general. Some of them are about like the economics or the business elements of writing poetry, or the publishing industry or something like that. So Ars Poetica can mean a lot of different things. As you may have guessed by now, listening to that description, I think that rappers do a lot of this work when they rap about rapping. That a lot of hip hop music is a meta commentary on hip hop music and hip hop culture, whether it's explicitly a rapper saying like what rap is good for or not good for, or implicitly, metaphorically, figuratively, whether it's talking about the act of rhyming itself or the power of language and storytelling more generally, whether it's talking about the rap industry and the music industry, or the role of rap and hip hop in broader cultural and political contexts. Rappers like to rap about rapping. I had a teacher back in the day. I actually don't remember which teacher this is. I have a couple guesses. I've had a lot of teachers. I've been in school for a long time, y'all. I had a professor of poetry back in the day suggest that maybe every single poem is an Ars Poetica. In other words, maybe every single poem, by nature of how it is written, is in some way a blueprint for what a poem is or can be or should do. And I'd like to playfully suggest that maybe rap is the same. Maybe every time an MC gets on the mic, they are laying out some kind of a blueprint or an ideal for what they think rap is all about. Every rap song is maybe, in a way, a rap song about rap and about hip hop in one way or another. Rappers are always telling us about their values. They're always telling us about why they think rhyming is important, what they think rap can do for them in their own lives or for their communities, what they think is appropriate material for a rap song, subject matter, and stuff like that. Yeah. There might be some other things that I wanted to say about that. Ars Poetica, rapping about rapping, every rap song in Ars Poetica in a way. But it's not coming to mind. So why don't we jump into the required songs, and if I have to rewind myself, I will. Cool. So up first, we've got Common, I Used to Love Her from 1994. This was back, so I said last week that, you know, Common is often thought of as having fallen off a little bit, or as being kind of a sellout, or like having a pretty good run as an artist, and then for one reason or another ceasing to be important. This is from his most important, this is from the beginning of his career. I think this is from his album Resurrection. But this was back when he had a lot of critical acclaim, though maybe not a lot of like popular success or commercial success. I think I quoted the Jay-Z line, did I, in the last lecture? If skills sold, truth be told, lyrically, I'd rather be Talib Kweli. I used to want to rhyme like common sense, but I done sold 5 mil and I ain't rhymed like common sense. Because Common used to be called Common Sense with his name back then. So Jay-Z recognizes that Common is an amazing rapper, and also that he's not very commercially successful. So this song, I Used to Love Her, comes from 1994, the golden era of hip hop. And I think the way that, even though it's from what we think of now as like the old school, the golden era, even it sort of looks back at kind of previous time periods as different kinds of golden eras. So that's interesting. It's nostalgic. We can be nostalgic about its time period, and it is nostalgic about previous time periods. I think that's interesting. This song, without revealing or ruining too much, participates in a literary device that I named last week. I talked about in connection with the Tupac song. So it might be a literary device that you want to make sure to know about for the final exam, for example. I love this song. I'm excited to see what y'all have to say about it. I think you're going to like it too. Up next, we've got Mos Def again. He goes by Yasin Bey now. I've named him Mos Def in the syllabus. Maybe that's disrespectful of me. He was Mos Def when he was making these albums. Now he's Yasin Bey. Conversationally, we should call him Yasin when talking about the art that he created back then. I don't know. But regardless, this is from his masterpiece of an album, Black on Both Sides, which is one of those albums that I hope you just listen to the whole way through. It's called Hip Hop. It's clearly an Ars Poetica in a sense. In that way, the name itself tells us this is a song about hip hop. He's going to be rapping about rap, about the power of rap, about the cultural and political context of the music industry, about what rap can and cannot do for rappers, what rap can and cannot do for communities. It contains contradictions. It contains lots of different ideas about what hip hop is, should be, can or can't be. There's also this recording. I don't think it's, if you just like YouTube Mos Def hip hop, you're probably not going to get this snippet. I think it's like, it's on the introductory track before this on the album. So if you're listening to the album, he like has this little spoken word thing. Maybe that's not the right word, but he's like not rapping. He's like, you should just listen to the album, the beginning of the album. He'll say it a lot better than me. I haven't listened to it in like a year. But he says something like, people are always asking me, about hip hop or where hip hop is going. And I'm saying like, we are hip hop. Hip hop is going where we're going. If we're coked up, hip hop is going to be coked up, and stuff like that. So that's like that like leads directly into this song. Something you should know. Great song. Up next, we've got Jay-Z featuring Eminem, Renegade. People in hip hop culture like to talk shit about when a rapper creates a cut, a track with a guest feature on it, and when the guest rhymes better than the original rapper does, people like to kind of roast them for that. And this is one of those examples. People say Eminem killed Jay-Z on his own track. I don't know. I think Jay-Z's verses are really thoughtful, really poignant. I think he's saying some really important stuff. It's true that he does not rhyme quite as many of his words as Eminem does in this particular song, but I don't think that's all there is to say. I think both of them deliver fantastic verses. Is an absolute classic, talking more about the reception of rap in popular culture and the music industry and like mainstream white American society and how they think of hip hop. Up next, we've got Das Racist, Rapping to You. I think maybe I talked about Das Racist in a previous video. It's unfortunate to me that they broke up. They're not making music together anymore. Heems and Kool AD, both really talented MCs. They're funny, and they are also speaking from positions, from identities, or from subject positions is the term we use in academia, perhaps. They're speaking from voices and identities that are generally underrepresented in hip hop, speaking as folks who identify as brown, who are not African American. And so I think what they brought to the table and what they had to offer in terms of their cultural references, in terms of their background and how that shapes their ideology and their philosophy of what hip hop can be and is and should be in today's global society, I think is really valuable, and I wanted to include on this syllabus. So I really hope y'all check this track out and study it, and I would love to hear what you have to say about it if you want to write about it for your weekly form post. Up next, we've got Kendrick Lamar, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. This is like a double track on Good Kid, Mad City. I'm actually only interested in for the purposes of this week and this class and this theme. I'm only interested in the first half, Sing About Me, the 3 verses and chorus before he gets into the skit about Christianity and stuff. You could listen to the whole thing, obviously. But what I really want you to focus on poetically, analytically, is these first 3 verses and the chorus that accompanies them and stuff. So this is like another masterpiece. How many times am I going to use that word this video now? Kendrick, as you all probably know, is one of the leaders of today's hip hop movement. He's positioned himself to be both an innovative artist, pushing the bounds of what rap can do as kind of an avant-garde artist, and as like a representative of the core values of hip hop. And I find that really interesting. It's not something that we've seen a lot of in hip hop. We've got a lot of weird avant-garde artists who push the bounds of the art form. Some of them even get some popular and commercial success, but a lot of them don't, as Jay-Z said in his call out of Talib Kweli and Common. Or we have rappers that represent the core mainstream values of hip hop who are not as committed to pushing the bounds of the art form. Kendrick does both, so I like that. But here, a couple of things. One, a literary device terminology you should know about for this song. In the world of poetry, we would call these verses persona poems. When a writer writes in persona, they are writing in a voice that is not exactly their own. Maybe it's a totally invented character or a famous or historical figure or something like that. Or maybe it's just kind of like slightly different than who they are really. So in a sense, I think I've said this in a previous video, a lot of rappers rap in persona a lot of the time. But this song, Kendrick, in the first 2 verses is taking on very, maybe not explicit is not the exact right word, but he's very clearly taking on the voice of characters. He's speaking from perspectives that are not his own. And in fact, he's speaking through those characters' voices to him and kind of critiquing himself from the perspective of these characters who may or may not be fictional. They may or may not be real people that he has known in his life. That's awesome. It's not a thing that a ton of rappers have done. And I think it's especially notable that the second verse is in the voice of a woman. In 2012, when this came out, the status of women in hip hop was still not quite as robust as it is today. And the fact that Kendrick would speak in the voice of a woman and do so, I think, sympathetically and thoughtfully, even if we can, we don't have to agree with his gender politics or what he says in this verse, but I think he approaches the task respectfully and artistically, and I appreciate that. And that was a thing that was like pretty big, that a big, well-known rapper would do that. And I think it pushed some boundaries in a good way. And then the third verse, I would say, is in his own voice. So I sometimes I teach this song in a week on persona and character in hip hop. Sometimes I teach this song in the week on storytelling. For the summer schedule, it had to get compressed and conflated. I wanted to drop it down here to Ars Poetica because I think kind of implicitly he's in saying, sing about me. What does it mean to sing about someone? What does it mean to tell someone's story in a rap verse? He's fundamentally asking a question about what rap is and can be and should do. Up next, we've got Kanye's song Monster, but really I only care about Nicki Minaj's verse. I think the rest of the song is somewhere between mediocre and garbage. Jay-Z's verse is fine, I guess. I personally strongly dislike Kanye's verse. I'm open to arguments that it's a fine verse, but it's not a brilliant verse, and stuff like that. Musically, perhaps like brilliant song, and I think that's the thing that people say about the thing that some people say about Kanye, that like musically he does something really important. Lyrically, as a rapper, he's uneven at best, and as a human, uneven at best. Though we all are, so who knows? Anyway, I want you to like zero in on Nicki Minaj's verse. I think it's incredible. I think what she does sonically with her voice is amazing. And this is one of her early verses. And so I think it's like kind of a foreshadowing almost in real life what her career would go on to do and what kind of personas she would develop. What she does with the rhyme scheme is amazing. She has a lot of sophisticated literary devices that are kind of like you need to pay a little bit of close attention to detect because they seem so smooth and so fluid. She makes it seem effortless what she's doing here, but she's actually doing some really cool, really radical stuff with wordplay, with repetition, with rhyme schemes, and with modulating her voice to modify the rhyme scheme too. Adam Bradley had a word for that in his chapter on rhyme that I think we read last week for when a rapper changes the pronunciation of a word to make it rhyme. You might want to know that for the final exam. Yeah, Nicki, I love Nicki. I think she's excellent. I think her solo work has been, well, now I'm just going to keep repeating the word uneven, has been hit or miss, but I'm looking forward to what she continues to do. I think she has just incredible talent on the mic and as a performer and figure. And up finally in the required songs, we've got Noname, Self from her album Room 25, Apartment 25. Forget what it's called, but this is the first track on her album. And again, I think Noname is just awesome. I love this song a lot. It's a quick one. It's like an opener to her album. And so that might be another thing to think about well, Mos Def's song was also the opener or one of the openers to one of the early songs in his album. So what does it mean? I guess maybe you all live in the post-album generation. We used to like buy CDs and listen to them or buy tapes and listen to them. I wasn't really in the vinyl generation exactly, but we would just listen to an album the whole way through. And so what does it mean for an artist who's crafting an album to say, like, this is the first thing I'm putting out there. This is my statement on what my rap album is about and its approach to rap. And I think Noname has she's like asking questions about what her work in particular and what hip hop more generally can do in this song. I think it's really cool. It's fun. The way she discusses gender in it is interesting. And I think her just general vibe of like being sort of chill, asking questions, and at the same time saying really poignant, really philosophically compelling stuff. It's cool, and I like it. So the B-sides, the optional songs, we've got NWA, Express Yourself, absolute classic. Y'all have probably heard of NWA. I think I put them on an optional song probably for a previous week. Fuck the Police. Express Yourself. I think this is awesome. It's super weird. Dr. Dre is rhyming about how he doesn't smoke weed because it's known to give a brother brain damage. And then like a few years later, he puts out a solo record that's all about weed called The Chronic. That's funny and weird. And I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what happened in his personal life. There's a song about being honest. And he's like, be honest, don't do drugs. And then a few years later, he's like, his whole persona is about drugs. So I don't know what to make of that. I also, in a background context, we haven't talked about ghostwriting at all in this class. This is not the kind of class where we're really situated to be able to talk about it in a profound way, because so much of it is not really known. It's known that a lot of rappers have ghostwriters. They do not write their own material. We are engaging with the texts, the poetic texts of the songs without really caring too much about who wrote them. We're looking at the poetic devices used and what these songs are saying about the themes and concepts we're discussing. So it sort of, in a sense, doesn't matter that for our purposes, that Dr. Dre almost certainly didn't write these verses. They're almost certainly written by Ice Cube. He was the main writer for NWA, as far as I understand it. But that's interesting background context, that again, Dr. Dre is rapping a song about being honest, about who you are, about expressing yourself, being authentic to your opinion. And that stuff was written by someone else. It's kind of funny. Nonetheless, I love this song. I think the rhyme scheme is amazing. I think what Dre is doing, or whoever wrote the verses, is pretty incredible. We've got the Fugees, How Many Mics. I think I said before, Lauren was like on the cusp of being one of the greatest rappers of all time. The Fugees for a short time. I think there was I just have a vague memory of this. I haven't like found it online, but I remember being like a teenager or whatever, a kid, and seeing like a Rolling Stone cover that said, "Are the Fugees the new Beatles?" And so like people really thought the Fugees were like the future of pop music. That didn't exactly happen. They didn't continue making music together for a variety of reasons. Nonetheless, they are worth going back and checking out. If you don't know a lot of their work, you've maybe heard one of their one or two big radio songs, but they've got a lot of awesome stuff worth digging into. How Many Mics, great rap song about rap. Del, the Funky Homo Sapien, also known as Deltron 3030. This is from the song 3030 is from the album Deltron 3030. It's a concept album about a futuristic dystopia where Del becomes like a mech or something like that to fight evil. I'm not clear exactly on the entire narrative, but this is like, I think this is like the intro song or the opener song where he explains the concept of what is happening in the year 3030. It's like sci-fi, it's cool, it's fun. I like the album a lot. Del has a wild style. I love his voice. He has a really unique persona and style of rhyming. He's one of the dudes who like is an avant-garde artist who did not exactly get mainstream commercial success, but he's widely respected in the art. Up next, we've got Cannibal Ox, a B-Boys alpha. Can Ox was they were an underground rap crew in the early 2000s in New York. They were very instrumental in solidifying and creating and solidifying a specific kind of New York independent hip hop, indie rap. They were on the label Def Jux, Definitive Jux, founded by LP, who's one half of Run the Jewels. He might have produced some of these songs, Cannibal Ox, I'm not sure, made the beats. Cannibal Ox, super weird. They also had a little bit of a sci-fi vibe, but not nearly as much as Del. Del is a California rapper, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. Cannibal Ox, very New York, a B-Boys alpha. This is about like kind of the beginning, the genesis of how hip hop came to be a role in these guys' lives. Up next, another underground crew, Idea and Abilities. Idea, rest in peace. This is from their first album, On This I Stand. I think this is a beautiful, poetic, philosophical song where Idea, one of the most philosophical rappers I think to ever have made music that got out there, waxes philosophical about what it means to make art. And this, unlike some of the songs in the required songs, this is the last song on their first record, on Idea and Ability's first record. So this is like the closing. This is their conclusion, their summary after they've walked you through their musical catalog, right? So I think that's interesting. They are also from my hometown, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Up next, we've got A$AP Rock, No Regrets. Ace Rock is another New York indie rapper like Cannibal Ox. He was on the Definitive Jux record label, and one of the most popular and celebrated artists that I would say creates abstract rap. His raps are full of bizarre imagery and phrases that seem nonsensical and maybe are nonsensical, but they create a kind of vibe and atmosphere, mood. This is one of his this is a pretty straightforward narrative song, and so this is what people often say, this is where you should start if you want to get into A$AP Rock. I don't know about that. Maybe you should start with some of his more abstract stuff if you like want to listen to him. Just listen to what he actually really does. But this song, I think, has a really cool message about what it means to make art and gives us an insight, especially into a lot of these indie rappers who are making art very clearly not for like fame and wealth. Some of them make a sort of living off of their art. Many of them don't even do that. One of my favorite underground rappers from Minneapolis, POS, he's in the crew Doomtree with Dessa. I don't think I put POS on this syllabus. He like needed a kidney transplant a few years ago, and he didn't have health insurance because indie rappers don't have health insurance. And he got the transplant. He was able to get a lot of support from his fans, but it was just a weird moment. So No Regrets, great song, A$AP Rock. Up next, Rhapsody, ABC. We had Rhapsody on the syllabus a few weeks ago. She's awesome. This song is representing a little bit more of a Southern style of rap that I am not an expert in. I realize it is underrepresented on this syllabus, other than the fact that I've got Outkast on like half of the weeks and Killer Mike. Southern rap, huge thing, a lot of important stuff to cover, and it's not exactly in my wheelhouse. I can send you some recommendations that my friends have passed along if you'd like to know more about Southern rap, but I like Rhapsody and what she's up to here. And I think she's speaking to a kind of intertextual tradition in Southern rap that, again, I don't have full access to. Finally, I said the video, you don't really need to watch the video, but I think it's a video on YouTube. Eminem's rap from the BET Cypher from 2011. If you look up Eminem BET Cypher, you're going to get the 2017 one where he talks shit about Donald Trump, which is awesome, but he does so in a very bizarre way that is sort of cringy to watch. I don't know. I think like he didn't do a very good job. It's sort of weird, but I like his message. But in 2011, it's not that. In 2011, he had like an entire cipher for his Shady 2.0 records, where he's got a lot of great rappers who have really cool verses, and then Eminem comes last, and he has what I think is just, to me, one of the, I don't know what number to say. I would put this in like the top 50 rap verses of all time in terms of like how sophisticated its rhyme scheme, its rhetorical structure, the structure of its argument, and how it moves through making its points and its arguments even. I put it in the top 50 rap verses. I don't know. I think it's really impressive what he does in this verse. And so I encourage you to follow like the rhetorical questions he asks. He's like asks like basically, is Eminem's career dead? And then he follows it up with a bunch of rhetorical questions, and this theme of like death and the end of Eminem's career keeps coming up in different ways throughout the rhetoric of the song, and he like increasingly uses bizarre narrative techniques to talk about that. So I dig it. Finally, read the epilogue for Adam Bradley's Book of Rhymes. It's short. It kind of sums up the whole book. We haven't read the whole book. Some of the chapters are kind of skippable, but I think his kind of summary is a good thing to close on. Even if you've struggled to read the scholarly reading so far, I highly recommend you read this epilogue, because I think it has a lot to offer us in terms of just kind of an overall view of some ways of thinking analytically and critically about hip hop. And I'm realizing right now that as I record this, I have not yet chosen the page poems for this week. I didn't put them on the syllabus. I think we're going to read another poem by Kari Jackson. I like his, yeah. So I need to like reacquaint myself with this poem. I haven't read it in 6 months or something like that. But he has this poem where he talks about like what hip hop feels like to me. And he has this sort of surreal narrative of rappers anachronistically or out of time, living their lives like in different time periods. And I think it's really fascinating what he's up to in that. So that'll be one of the poems we read, and I'm sure there will be one or two other poems that I find and upload as well. As always, if you have any questions, if you want to chat, we can set up a Zoom appointment or shoot me an email, and I can answer any questions you have over email. Thanks so much, and I look forward to reading your work for this final week and digging in and seeing how you dig into the material. Thank you very much. Yeah, email me.